They found him in pieces buried deep in the filth of his own farm. Michael Gaine was no criminal, no troublemaker, just a quiet 56-year-old farmer in rural Kerry, Ireland, known for his routine, his sheepdog, and his silence. But on March 20th, 2025, he vanished. Weeks later, human remains were pulled from his slurry tank, and standing at the center of the storm, a US Army veteran named Michael Kelley. Who is he? Why was he arrested? And why, after everything, was he released without charge? This isn't just a murder case, it's a web of suspicion, silence, and something the police still won't say out loud. Let's break it down, step by step, because this story is far from over. Michael Kelley isn't just some outsider. He's a former US Army soldier in his mid-50s from the state of Maine. At first glance, nothing about him screams suspect. He had been living in Tralee, County Kerry, for several years, quiet, low profile, no criminal record in Ireland. But what makes him more than just a name in the news is his connection to Michael Gaine. Kelley wasn't a stranger. He worked on Michael Gaine's farm for nearly 3 years. Locals say he helped with livestock and chores, sometimes disappearing for weeks, then returning to stay in a caravan on the property. He and Gaine weren't best friends, but they knew each other well enough. Well enough that some people say there was trust. Others say there was tension. According to reports, Kelley was also in Ireland illegally. His permission to remain had lapsed, and immigration authorities had issued him a deportation notice in the weeks before Gaine's disappearance. So now ask yourself this: what was an ex-soldier from the US doing on a remote Irish farm? And why, just days after a deportation warning, does the man who gave him work turn up dead? This wasn't a random encounter. This was personal. So let's get into it. Why did Gardaí arrest Michael Kelley in the first place? It wasn't just a hunch. On May 16th, 2025, human remains were discovered inside the slurry tank on Michael Gaine's farm. A family member and an agricultural contractor found them while trying to clear a blockage. What they found stopped them cold. Bones, flesh, decay later confirmed by forensics to be the remains of Michael Gaine. Now here's where it gets serious. Michael Kelley had been seen on the farm just days before Gaine vanished. He knew the property, he knew how things worked, and he had the motive, the means, and the opportunity. Local reports suggest there were suspicions of a dispute between the two men, possibly linked to money or immigration pressure. And remember, Kelley was already under scrutiny due to that deportation order. Investigators believed he had reason to act quickly and violently. On May 18th, Gardaí arrested Kelley under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act, which allows for up to 24 hours of questioning without charge. It was a big move, high profile, calculated. They believed he might crack under pressure. But he didn't. No confession. No slip-ups, no direct forensic evidence, at least not yet. That's why we go next to. If they arrested him and they found a body in the slurry tank and he worked for the man, then why was he released? Here's the cold, frustrating truth. Michael Kelley was released because the evidence wasn't strong enough to hold him. On May 18th, 2025, Gardaí arrested Kelley under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act 1984, which allows up to 24 hours of detention for questioning without a formal charge. They questioned him intensely, but in the end, no charges were filed. Why? Because the body was too badly decomposed. Michael Gaine's remains were submerged in a slurry tank, a toxic chemical mix that destroys organic material. Even with forensic expertise, identifying clean DNA or trace evidence from that environment was almost impossible. Clothes, fingerprints, biological material, all nearly wiped out. A chainsaw was found on the property and sent for forensic testing, but as of the last official updates, no conclusive results had been made public. And under Irish law, you can't hold someone without enough physical evidence tying them to the crime. No witnesses, no confession, no video footage, and no forensics that directly implicated Kelley, at least not yet. So the guard Eve had to do what the law required, release him without charge. He's still considered a person of interest. He's not cleared. But unless new evidence surfaces, he's free to walk. In fact, as of now, he can legally leave Ireland. And yet, he hasn't. Kelley gave a short interview to the press. He said he was absolutely revolted by the murder. He said he loved working on that farm. He denied everything. So either he's telling the truth or he's playing the long game. Michael Kelley wasn't a stranger to Michael Gaine. In fact, the two had known each other for at least 3 years. Kelley had been working and living on Gaine's farm in Kerry East, near Kenmare, mostly off the radar. He stayed in a caravan parked on the property, helped with animals, and handled general farm labor. Locals say he was quiet but reliable, not very social, but always around. Gaine wasn't running a big operation. It was a small, tight, rural setup, and someone like Kelley, with hands-on experience and no ties to town drama, fit the bill. They weren't best friends, but there was trust there, or at least there used to be. According to reports, there was a growing tension between the two in recent months. Rumors from people close to the farm suggest Gaine may have asked Kelley to leave, especially after Kelley received a deportation notice from Irish immigration. His permission to remain in the country had expired, and pressure was building. Some say Gaine didn't want trouble with the authorities. Others believe he was trying to help Kelley leave quietly. But whatever the case, something clearly shifted. The last confirmed sighting of Michael Gaine alive was the morning of March 20th, 2025, the same timeframe Kelley was still believed to be around the property. And then Gaine disappeared. So here's the picture. A man facing deportation, living on a remote farm, reported tensions with the farmer. And suddenly, that farmer vanishes without a trace. You do the math. The arrest of Michael Kelley wasn't a random sweep. It was the result of weeks of suspicion, growing pressure, and one horrific discovery that changed everything. On May 16, 2025, a family member and an agricultural worker were spreading slurry on Michael Gaine's farm in Kerry East when they hit a blockage in the system. When they opened the tank to investigate, what they found wasn't just clogged pipes. They found human remains. The guard Eve were called immediately. Forensics rushed in. It didn't take long to confirm what many feared: the remains were Michael Gaine, disfigured, dismembered, and hidden in one of the worst places imaginable for recovering evidence. That single moment flipped the case from a missing person into a murder investigation. And just 2 days later, on May 18th, guard Eve moved fast. They arrested Michael Kelley under suspicion of murder. Why him? Because Kelley was the last known person living on the property and had close access to the slurry tank and farmyard. There was also a chainsaw recovered from the scene, now under forensic testing, and whispers of a conflict between the two men likely tied to Kelley's looming deportation only added fuel to the fire. The arrest happened in Kerry. Reports say Kelley didn't resist. He was taken into custody for questioning under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act, giving guard Eve up to 24 hours to interrogate him. At that point, the public assumed this was a case closed, killer caught. But behind closed doors, it wasn't so simple. No confession, no witnesses, no DNA, at least not yet. Just a storm of suspicion and a very bad scene. Before Michael Kelley ever became a murder suspect, he was already in trouble. See, Kelley, the ex-US Army veteran from Maine, had been living in Ireland for several years. But what most people didn't know was his legal status had expired. He was already facing deportation. According to immigration records and media reports, Kelley had been issued a deportation notice by Irish authorities just weeks before Michael Gaine went missing. That means his presence in Ireland was technically illegal at the time the body was discovered. And here's where it gets real murky. Some insiders believe Gaine may have asked Kelley to leave the farm once the deportation order came through. Gaine, a quiet man with no interest in conflict, may have wanted to avoid legal problems. Others think Kelley felt cornered, facing deportation, homelessness, and the loss of the only work he had in Ireland. Now imagine that pressure boiling over. Authorities haven't publicly confirmed if the deportation order is part of the motive, but it's a crucial piece of the puzzle. It explains why Kelley may have had a reason to lash out and why tensions on the farm might have been rising long before anyone went missing. As for his legal situation now, he's not charged and he's legally free to leave Ireland. The only thing keeping him here is the ongoing murder investigation, and if no new evidence turns up, he could walk away permanently. Whether he stays or vanishes is something Ireland and the Gardaí are watching closely. The people of Kerry aren't just shocked, they're angry. Michael Gaine wasn't a politician, a celebrity, or a man with enemies. He was a farmer, a quiet one, the kind of guy people barely noticed until he vanished, and parts of him were found buried in filth on his own land. And now, after all that horror, the only man arrested in connection with his death, Michael Kelley, is walking free. Locals are furious, not just at the crime, but at how it was handled. From the start, there were serious questions. Why did it take nearly 2 months to find Gaine's body? Why weren't the slurry tanks checked sooner? Why wasn't the deportation issue flagged earlier? And when Kelley was released without charge, those frustrations exploded. Some believe the Gardaí acted too slow. Others believe they're hiding what they really know. There are memorials now, makeshift shrines, people leaving notes and flowers by the farm gate. And beneath the grief is one loud, echoing message. We want justice. We want answers. As for the investigation, it's still open. The Gardaí are continuing forensic tests, especially on the chainsaw found on the farm. They're also analyzing Kelley's digital history, phone data, messages, travel records, looking for anything that connects him directly to the crime. But the clock is ticking. If they can't build a case soon, Kelley could be gone, and this story could fade into the long, cold drawer of unsolved Irish murders. Michael Gaine deserved better. A man who spent his life tending sheep and minding his own business was brutally murdered and left to rot in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. Buried in Slurry, dismembered, hidden. And now, months later, the only suspect, a man who lived and worked on his land, is free. No charge, no trial, nothing. Michael Kelley says he's innocent, says he had nothing to do with it, says he was revolted by the discovery. But here's the thing, someone did this. Someone cut Michael Gaine apart. Someone put him in that tank. And someone out there knows exactly what happened that morning on March 20th. The Gardaí say the investigation is active, but to this day, no one has been held accountable. And the silence, it's louder than ever. So this is where we are. A murdered man, a released suspect, and a community full of questions no one seems willing to answer. If you know anything, speak. If you believe in justice, share this story. Because the only thing more terrifying than what happened is the thought that whoever did this is still out there watching and waiting while the rest of us move on. And Michael Gaine, he deserves more than silence.